Hello. Um, Hello, Facebook. We decided to do a hot topic today and to keep it interesting and, like serious but yet fun at the same time, and us just being our two typical goofballs about things. Um, and the topic for today's is talking about the greatest weakness in humanity is our need to feel more important or more valuable than other humans. And the reason I call it the greatest weakness is because I think a lot of the brokenness in who we are as a species can actually go back, like the foundation of the obsession for power, of the need to control other people, of hierarchy that was, designed since the beginning of, human consciousness, basically. It all comes back to this like instinctual human nature need to feel more important and feel more valuable. So, Chris and I will just kind of like provide our thoughts. Again, I always like to just make sure everybody knows, like, these are our opinions. We're not claiming to be professional therapists. We are not claiming to have all the answers. We're just providing our thoughts and opinions. What I will ask is for anybody that's here and watching, and I see we've got a few folks that are watching us live here, comment.
We love perspective, and that comes through conversation, and this is as much of a conversation as we can get on Facebook, to share our perspective, to hear yours. I think it's awesome to like learn new perspectives, and nobody's right or wrong, but everybody's got their own takeaway. So, and I, like Angela was saying, on a global scale since the beginning of time, this need to feel more important has affected everything, in business, in personal, in relationships, in government, in everything. And we're like, why? Why do people need to feel so important? And we have a few like thoughts on that.
Yeah. In my opinion, the only people that should have a responsibility to make you feel important and feel valuable and feel maybe in even some cases more important and more valuable than some other person is your parents or whoever it is that's raising you. And of course, families, they look very different, a whole lot of different makeup. So I don't want to be specific to like a mom and dad situation. It could be any family makeup. But the people who are ultimately raising you in your life are really the only ones who, in my opinion, should carry that responsibility. When we talk about parenting or someone who's raising children, the reason I say I think they're the only ones who are responsible for doing this is because I believe that if human beings don't receive that level of love, of feeling special, of feeling important by their parents or parent figure growing up, they will then, it will affect every single aspect of their life.
They'll be on a mission to seek it from somewhere else.
The premise of the conversation, you want to add any more, like, in terms of like what your opinions are of why that's a brokenness in humanity, like why it's such a weakness?
No, I can echo that, and unfortunately there's a lot of great parenting happening. There's a lot of really broken parenting happening, and I just think it's important that, and I know that, at least I hope this has been my experience in my family history, each generation just keeps trying to do better than the last one. And fix the broken pieces, and we just keep trying every day to do better. There's a lot of people who weren't raised like that.
So. We also, when we were chatting about it, is the impacts of like generational, relationships. So, when I think of the generations where, my parents' generation, which is like the
baby boomers.
Wiser end of the baby boomers, I'll use that expression. They were, at least one of my parents was very much raised in an environment where it was like children are not to like contradict, you must constantly obey.
They were raised to be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
That's how my parents were raised.
And, it was considered disrespectful to like disagree in any way, shape, or form. And so it was definitely more criticism than praise, and not really a lot of like, and I would say that like my grandmother was very nurturing, and she was like very complimentary to her kids and her grandkids and everything. But then my grandfather was like, that's not my job, that's her job.
With the generations, I just had a deep conversation with somebody that I met the other day about this. In the early 80s and prior, people did not talk to their children and explain things about why things were happening in the world. It was just like, this is the way it is. I could list a million stories that could branch off from this. But our generation, I feel like, has a good grasp of how to talk to our children and explain things to them. Not to necessarily, like, I don't necessarily try to coddle my children or, like, answer to my children, but I like to explain to them why things are done the way they're done in the world so that they have that foundation. Back then, people didn't talk to their kids that way, and I feel like we're doing better now.
Yeah, I think we're starting to kind of get past the because I said so.
Yeah.
You know.
You're going to do what I'm saying, but here's why.
I think, you know, kind of adding on to the topic of there's obviously still a lot of brokenness in the world. I mean, guys, let's talk about this, like, and on a positive note. The pandemic is finally going to be officially declared as over here, I believe in May.
May 11th, you said.
And don't quote me on that one because I can't remember.
Oh,
based something. And I mean, we've gone through this, like, crazy time in history that will literally be talked about for thousands of years probably about this experience, like what it meant. But then we also, as much as we're gonna all be like, oh, thank God that we're like officially calling this over. There's a lot of fallout, and there's a lot of mental health stuff that is the fallout of what we all just collectively experience, and all collectively experience in very different ways and have very different perspectives. You know, one of the biggest pieces of the fallout is the impact on families and on kids that are in those homes where, I mean, I know firsthand when our kids were home virtual schooling, and I had a child, one of my kids were in first grade, and when they were home for the shutdown, and I got to tell you, it was like a combination of like heartbreak and also kind of like really like a little bit of shock in there too, that I knew that there were first graders that were at home by themselves. I think it's important, again, like the whole purpose of behind my channel is to talk about these things that may not be like the easiest thing to talk about it, but the more we talk about it, and we trigger a conversation in a positive way, not trigger like, you know, hey, I've been triggered, I want to go do something crazy, but trigger in a positive way.
I'm getting triggered right now.
I'm triggered. But, you know, but doing it in a positive way so that we can start to, again, always work towards understanding, not agreement. That's not the commitment anybody should feel like when they're communicating.
Understanding and having a new perspective and being open to it.
Exactly. And you could come out of it still having your own and feel like your perspective is safe, but also, you know, making that effort to understand somebody else's perspective. And I think, you know, as we continue our healing process, that I'm sure is going to still take quite some time, there's going to be also a lot of things that will never go back to what they were pre-pandemic.
It'll be new.
But to just have that like sensitivity, that understanding of, and also anticipate like, gosh, we've got, you know, kids that, I mean, our brokenness was already there, our weakness of needing to feel more important than other human beings is already there instinctually. And then when you add on, like, if they're in difficult circumstances, and then you add on top of it now, just going through what we went through for the past few years, we've got some very real challenges ahead of ourselves, and hopefully all we can do is, you know, just try to do better. And, you know, for experienced parents and, you know, talking to people who are younger, if you're mentoring people, like reminding them, if you don't think being a parent is for you, then don't do it. You know, hey, let me give you some advice on if you don't want to be a parent, like let's make sure we're using some common sense, like in terms of making sure you don't get pregnant, you know, and you don't have babies if that's not what you want to do. And just really trying to like extend that hand, that olive branch of experience and understanding without judgment, and to be able to do that in a way that like other people can benefit from, because we're all going to need a lot of that. I think just kind of taking this whole thing full circle and, you know, and bringing it back to like recognizing that this is maybe not but one of the greatest weaknesses we have, you know, is to not default to, you know, tradition or the way things were done all the time for the sake of doing that because we feel like that's our safe place. I think, you know, it's really focusing on what can I do, because the only person I'm in control of is myself, right? So if I'm in control of myself, what can I do to remind myself and to remind other people around us that we are all together of equal value. Well, guys, we're happy to be back. I am hoping to be back on a regular schedule of doing these. We're going to have, I'll give a little teasers out there. We have had much progress.
So much progress. So
with,
exciting.
What's happening here in the Antony compound in terms of the addition for office build out.
We have walls.
We have walls.
They're amazing.
Some of the walls are painted, but we've had a lot of progress. So we have future design series. We kind of like the holidays, I feel like just threw a big wrench in continuing progress with the actual editing of the design videos. So hopefully that will be kicking back into action on my YouTube channel very soon, and we'll of course put it out into social and make sure you guys know that that's coming.
Wait till you guys see it. It's so exciting. Everything that's happening. I can't wait till you show.
And so for those HGTV junkies out there like me, definitely tune in. Outside of that, we've got lots of ideas in the new year around hot topics. We've got so many things happening in terms of business.
So many things.
We're looking
I'm even now coming up with business ideas.
Yeah. So just everything across the board, from life to design to business to hot topics, like you name it. We'll definitely be seeing other people joining into other discussions that we have, especially with the generational differences and understanding type of series that we're doing. We'll be having different folks join for that. So stay tuned.
We're excited to be back, and thank you all for tuning in.
Yes. And if you haven't done it yet, please do so. Please like and subscribe and follow and do all the things. Hit your notifications bell. And I look forward to seeing more of you and hearing more from you guys in upcoming videos. Take care.
Have a great one.